Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews. And we are here for the Blind Spot Project. And this is the show where we like to talk about sometimes cult classics. And that's the case here with we're talking about 1980s Xanadu. Uh, and it's a cult classic in this case that we have not seen. So we're
Mm-mm.
watching for the first time, which is so much fun. And you definitely want to check out the playlist with all of our blind spot reviews. And over on my site, I've reviewed over 100 movies over the years with for Blind
Cool.
Spot. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner and Manda's here.
Heyo, good to be
Yeah,
back. It's been forever, Rachel.
it
It's
really
been
has. It
forever.
feels so long. And yeah, if you don't want to do the blind spot anymore after this movie, I understand.
We're still in the clear. I was
Everybody
intrigued
has
by
their
this.
tipping point.
This was interesting. It wasn't like we'll get into it, but I'm like I'm not turned off entirely by it, so
Well, that's
yeah.
good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's one of those interesting movies that it does have sort of a cult following because it's not. I don't think it's quite on the same level as The Room, but it's that same kind
Mm.
of phenomenon, I think, when it
Yeah.
kind of gets a or like Showgirls or some of these
Yeah.
movies that are like notoriously bad but kind of get a cult following because they are bad and
Yeah.
because people kind of like being a part of rooting for an underdog, I think.
Yeah, I think that's part of it is the fact that you just want to understand why it's bad. And like that's what happened with me when I watched The Room for the first time. I'm like, it can't be that bad. And then you're watching it and it's like, wow. You're just amazed by how
Yeah,
terrible it is, but you
it
can't
really.
stop watching it. Like that's how I felt with Xanadu, where it's like nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense in this movie. But you're like, but where are they gonna go with it type of
Yeah.
thing, right? So it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that The Room is really for me is really only watchable with the riff tracks with the commentary on top of it. That's so much more funny. I highly
Yeah.
recommend that. But just on its own, I mean, I've never watched it with a crowd, so that might make a difference as well. But watching
Yeah.
it, I mean, I watched the riff tracks with the crowd, but I've never
Watch the
watched just
movie.
the plain movie.
Yeah.
Uh, but so that might make a difference. But yeah, I think that the thing with The Room is that it's just also like really boring.
It
And so
is. It
whereas I
is.
would way rather personally, I would rather watch Xanadu than The Room. I mean, I know that's like a high bar, but still.
No, I would too, because I think honestly, the musical numbers are pretty well executed. I don't,
Yeah.
they didn't make sense like in the movie, like the placement for each of them. I was very confused, absolutely befuddled. So
Yeah.
I was like, why is this relevant here? But they were well executed. I thought the costuming was great. I thought that like it was upbeat and it was fun and they could kind of do whatever the hell they wanted in this, to be perfectly honest. Like they were
Yeah.
doing all genres, all like everything that you can think of is thrown into this movie. So I would definitely watch Xanadu again over The
Uh-huh.
Room. Yeah.
What's interesting is that I actually so they made a Broadway musical off of this movie, which
They
is
did, right?
kind of
Yeah.
crazy because I mean you would just think this is I mean this did you know that Xanadu was the first movie to get nominated or one of the first movies to get nominated for Razzie.
No
Yeah,
way.
it won worst director, which I mean I don't know what the other competition was for worst director, but it's not like a badly directed movie.
No, I thought he
Like
had some sauce.
for
Like there's
what it
something.
is, like he does a decent job. But yeah, he
Yeah.
got that he won. But not only did it was one of the first movies to get nominated for a Razzie, but it inspired the guy to create the Razzies because he hated it so much,
That's hysterical. Oh my
which is
God.
really funny.
We watched history, basically. Like, this is a
Yeah.
historic film.
Yeah. Which is it's they let's see here. Yeah, the creation of the Golden Raspberry Award struck as the worst of the year. But the soundtrack album became successful and was certified
Hmm.
double platinum. Song Magic was US chart topper for Olivia Newton-John, and the title track reached #1 in the United Kingdom and several other countries.
Makes sense.
Yeah, the film has
Xanadu.
yeah.
Terrible, but
What was
catchy.
also kind of interesting, so like it's always interesting when you watch the musical before you see the movie that's
Yeah.
based on, when you kind of do it in reverse, which is what I did.
Yeah.
And I was very bored by the musical. I didn't like it. But it was interesting because I've seen Hadestown so many times recently, particularly this teen edition. And it's kind of interesting because it has the same characters as this, but this is very like bright and poppy, and in Hadestown is like
Yeah.
dark and blues and kind of jazz influence, things like that. And so that was kind of interesting for me, is to look at, okay, this is a different way of portraying Hades, portraying Persephone, and portraying all of these characters, which I thought that it was interesting, but it was I didn't like the Broadway musical, but
Yeah.
I did read an interesting article about it in the New Yorker. It says here that Xanadu has developed one of the more impassioned cult audiences in bad movie history. YouTube is rife with amateur tributes, but more important, there's the music packed with shimmery romantic pop songs by the British arena synth band Electric Light Orchestra. Broadway, it was nominated for Best Musical, Best Book. It did well enough to get a national tour. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, Critical reception. It's simultaneously indefensible and irresistible. There's so much silly bliss to be had. There's enough first-rate stage talent rolling around Xanadu to power a season of wholly new old school non-jukebox musicals. So it premiered on Broadway in 2007, ran over 500 performances, and had a national tour. So that's nothing to sneeze
Wow.
at. So
No,
way to
they did
go.
well. Yeah. Surprising.
Yeah. But what was disappointing to me is that in the production that I saw, Kira was the only character in roller skates,
Oh,
which was kind of disappointing because I thought it was going to be like Starlight Express, like roller skates everywhere, but
I guess
it's not. It's only
they
her.
had to they had to find a way to like have a distinction if they couldn't do like lights, the neon lights
Maybe,
around her.
maybe,
Maybe that's why.
yeah,
That would make sense. But
yeah.
I had no clue why they made it sci-fi
Yeah.
that way either.
So
There's
I
no
think
answers.
part of the problem with this movie is that this lead is so flat. He's just not good. This Michael Beck in the lead, and I think that if they had somebody with a little bit more charisma, like it obviously this is the wrong era, but if you had somebody who, if they did if you had somebody like Matthew McConaughey when he was young, somebody like that with
Yeah.
some some swagger,
Like
like
just
this guy just
something.
doesn't have it.
He annoyed me so much. Like everything was flat about it. I'm just like, oh
Yeah,
my God, it's not engaging.
no chemistry.
I was waiting for like Gene Kelly to come on. I was like, where's my boy? Like, why isn't he
Yeah,
in this as the lead, you know? Like,
like even if they had had John Travolta at the time, who was the big star,
yeah.
that would have been much better. Like he has way more charisma than this guy.
Oh, definitely. I
So
agree. And it's sad because like I think he was trying to be like the next big thing and then he
yeah,
did nothing of note
yeah.
after this.
Well, but I do feel kind of bad for him because the script is also absolutely terrible.
It's about nothing.
Yeah.
This thing is like he is a freelance artist. We understand starving artists. We understand that we want to like try to make art for the sake of art and not for consumption. I get all of what they were trying to do with it. But the first like 45 minutes of this was so repetitive and like I want to live the dream and I need like my muse. I need to like be inspired. And then Kira comes out of nowhere like five different times and she's not real. So
Yeah.
it's like I understand what they were trying to do, but I'm like this sci-fi like futuristic romance musical. I said all of those things. Yes.
Yeah, it is.
I said all of those things. It's wild to watch. It's just wild to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of Rachel's Reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
Working as this painter, he
Mm.
makes like I guess like he has to copy the paintings of album covers.
I still don't understand what
Yeah.
his job. It's like what?
And he's like, guys like me shouldn't dream anyway. And then his boss, you paint what you're told to paint.
These lines. I'm like, okay, sorry. He's like, no, I need to do it for the sake of art. I'm like, okay.
So then he paints this mural, and then the mural comes alive. And he wasn't even that like excited about that. Like if my mural came
No.
alive, like I would be wow.
Yeah. He was like, oh, cool. It's another Tuesday. Sick.
Yeah.
Like,
So then Kira kisses him like just randomly in the street, which I would also be kind of shocked by. He's like, oh yeah, this girl just like kissed me. It was really
it's so dumb because it's like, I have to go look for her, but you have
Yeah.
no idea where to start, my friend. And that's why, like, even the journey to Kira, I'm like, this doesn't make sense
Yeah.
at all.
Like if I'm just walking down the street and somebody like kisses me, I would, can you
You're
imagine?
like, the hell? Personal bubble, sir. Thank you. Like, what do you mean?
uh, and the other thing that was not helping this movie out at all is the crazy transitions. These like
It's like, we get it. You wanted it to be like in space. We understand. We understand it's in the future. But like even like designing the like lights and everything to make it like she's the Flash for some reason. I'm like, what are you doing here?
it
Like, these are
reminded me
choices.
of when I was first editing and you could use Movie Maker, which I don't even know if they have anymore on Microsoft, but Movie Maker, and they would have like the star transition or the, like when you're first doing it, you're like, ooh, this is so cool. It looks so cool, but not in a feature film.
It's like, I don't know who thought that would be cool.
You don't want like the star wipe in your feature film.
So funny.
It was hilarious.
The most funniest thing.
So then Danny, he remembers dancing with Kira. That's when he sings "Whenever You're Away from Me." So overall, what did you think about the songs? Just the songs. How did you feel?
I thought they were pretty good, but they're kind of forgettable at the same time. I'm such a sucker for a tap number, so when I saw them go at, especially Gene Kelly, I adore that man. He can do anything at any age. He is the most charismatic person in this movie, and he saved it for me. Like, it was such a joy to even watch him in this. Sadly, the movie's terrible, but like it was like, yay, Gene Kelly again,
And I
right?
think this is his last film, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Douglas
guy.
Carter Bean, who wrote the book for the musical based on the film, later called Xanadu "What happens when you let straight men near the musical blame cocaine. It's like the people say when you hear Ray Charles play, you can hear the heroin. When you watch Xanadu, you can see the cocaine up on the screen."
You know, it's accurate. That is the best way to describe this. I'm serious. They're right.
Yeah.
So right.
So yeah, I mean the songs are pretty enjoyable, and so I guess you can see why people liked the Broadway musical because it had
Yeah.
pretty fun songs, but like the choreography, the way that they're staged isn't that exciting. So
No, and I saw that in the last one where they're like Xanadu's finally opened and the rollerblade number that felt like it went on for 15
it
minutes was
really felt long.
insane.
Also, it
The-
came out of nowhere that all of a sudden they're just like dancing on roller skates in the studio. I was like, what's
But
happening?
like the choreography for Xanadu, I was like, what do you mean? There's just an X over your head. Like I was dying. And then even the editing, it's like how many times are you gonna show the rollerblades pass by the camera? And I'm like, it was just I was
Yeah.
a fever dream at that point. I'm like, I should have watched this drunk out of my mind. Like, would have made it better.
Yeah, it's true. Jeremy Johnson has that, like, it would have been a better time if I was drunk or not, no alcohol required. I'm like, yeah, this qualifies.
It's
Be better.
crazy.
So Sunny and Danny decide to they're going to build this Xanadu. And Danny is Gene Kelly's character. Sunny is the younger one. And they're going to build Xanadu. And that's when we get the Don't Walk Away Don Bluth animated romance sequence, which was wild.
I was
Like,
at a loss, just a loss for words. No idea.
So Don Bluth, just so you know, so Don Bluth, he was a Disney animator, and then right around this time, he left Disney and started his own animation company. It was considered quite the mutiny for dad because at the time,
I can imagine.
he really,
Yeah.
aside from like Warner Brothers and their shorts, there really was nothing else that was at the time a comparison or competition to Disney in any way. And during the 70s and 80s, and well, really, I mean, for the first decade, for the first from 37 to Don Bluth, there was like the first like real competition aside from shorts. Because like something like a Looney Tunes or a Hanna-Barbera, those kind of things were all shorts, and there was really nobody else making features that in any kind of major competition to Disney. You had like obviously some foreign films, there were some indies, things like that. You had Ralph Bakshi in the 70s. You had some stuff that wasn't really though competition for Disney. But Don Bluth, so he separated out from Disney, brought some of those animators with him, started his own studio in Arizona, and for a while he did a pretty good run of competing with Disney. It's pretty impressive, like what he accomplished. The Secret of Nim, that was his first film, and then he did An American Tail, which actually beat Disney, and then The Land Before Time did better than Disney.
What?
Yeah,
he did The Land Before Time.
Yeah,
I watched all of them. Oh my god, I had no idea.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Well, he just did the first one.
Oh, he just did the first one?
But
one, still.
Yeah.
For him to invent The Land Before Time.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's Harpeth Road Press and author Savannah Carlyle's new book, The Summer of Starting Over. Callie left her island hometown years ago with big dreams. She knew precisely the star she wanted to be, and she achieved it, at least for a little while. Jesse Thomas had always planned to move to Nashville with Callie, but he was supposed to get there before her, knocking out his first year at Vanderbilt while she was still finishing high school. Neither of them imagined she'd get discovered so early, or that family turmoil would put Jesse's family on the brink of financial collapse. He needed to be on Big Dune Island, and she needed to leave. Then all her dreams came crashing down. As she sorts through the wreckage of her career, her uncle Lonnie forces her to return to Big Dune Island to clean out the family home he's recently sold. And she knows she'll have to face Jesse. Pick up The Summer of Starting Over by Savannah Carlyle wherever you purchase your books or use the affiliate link below. That's The Summer of Starting Over by Savannah Carlyle. Add it to your must reads today. Very random that we get him doing this animated sequence.
It's so weird. It's so weird.
It's wild that it's like that now. It's been, I have to admit, it's been a couple weeks since I saw it because we had to reschedule, but like it's just like them dancing and stuff, right?
Yeah, from what that's what they end up
Romance.
doing. It's
Yeah.
just it's very tame stuff for an animator to take on.
And that's when we get All Over the World, which is probably the most popular song. Amy
Yeah.
Magic, that too,
Yeah.
is very popular. And then Kira falls for Sunny, and she's a muse. They have absolutely no chemistry together. It is just flat.
Like Olivia Newton-John's trying her hardest with what she has, and I'm like, I don't think anyone's ever gonna have the same chemistry with her as John Travolta had. Like,
Yeah.
I can't see it at all, you know? So
Well, and I wrote down Sunny is very bad.
he gives nothing, like absolutely
No,
nothing.
very
As
bad.
you need a lead who's like at least charming enough to carry it.
Yeah.
And when I'm like aching for Gene Kelly to come back on screen, that's when you know you failed.
You know who would have been good during this time period is someone like a Burt Reynolds. Someone with a little swagger, a little, you know what I mean?
Something like yeah, what
Yeah.
year did it come out? 1980, the 80s.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. No, Burt Reynolds is a good choice
Yeah.
actually.
I
That
don't
would
know
have
how
worked.
old he would have been in 1980, but somebody like that with just like a little personality. This guy's so weak and bland.
So, you know who would be good? Kind of, because I just Googled like actors in the 80s that were kind of like up and coming. Maybe like a Michael J. Fox would have been like some sort of like charismatic there.
Yeah, I think he would have just been a hair too. Let's see how old he is. So he was
Oh
born in
yeah, age.
1961. So no, actually, that would have worked.
Would have worked.
Yeah.
I
He
think
would have
he
been
would have been
19.
good.
He would have been 19. Then that would work for Sunny.
He would have looked so cute.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, just
I
somebody
had
with some personality.
something. I had
Yeah.
such a crush on Michael J. Fox. I still
Yeah.
do.
Oh yeah.
Love that man. Yeah.
He's so
Not to
good.
go off on a tangent, but the bestest. We love
And so then you have Sunny going into the mural that's in the song The Fall. And
yeah.
then he like confronts the
God. Like that's what it felt like. Like, okay.
So inside the realm of the gods on Mount Helicon, Sunny pleads with Kira's father Zeus to allow Kira to return to Earth. And Kira's sympathetic mother, Mensumine, attempts to influence Zeus. However, Zeus sends Sunny back to Earth. Kira then professes her feelings for Sunny.
That was a good
drama.
song, actually. I like that song.
Yeah,
that was good.
She sings when she's suspended in time.
Yeah,
It's the
I
song
liked
she
it.
sings. We also get earlier, we didn't talk about it, but we get Danny remembering dancing with Kira because she's a muse, and he sings whenever you're away from me, and that's when we get the tap dancing from Gene Kelly.
It's just
And so I wrote down
everything.
nostalgic.
Yes.
Nostalgic.
No, it's true. Like I actually got teary-eyed and he still had it at his age. Like it was so smooth, his movements. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Made my day.
So then we have the Zeus ends up relenting. That he says that I'll allow you to be with Sunny, maybe just one moment or forever.
Yeah, it was kind of confusing. I'm like, why don't you just make up your
So then they have the opening of the club, and Kira and the Muses perform at the opening of the club, and that's when they sing the Xanadu song.
like
Xanadu.
5 times.
Yeah.
5 times.
It's a long sequence. It really
No,
is.
but what made me laugh was like they would put the X as a transition and it was like costume change, X, costume change, and there was like a totally
Yeah.
different choreography. And I'm like, I'm like, is this like the greatest hits of Xanadu that we're just doing at the end of this to like
It did
kind of
feel
tie
like
it
a mu
together?
it felt like they just tacked on the music video for Xanadu
Yes.
at the end.
That's what it felt like.
It
And I'm like, but
did.
how are we ending this though? Like, what are we
Yeah.
doing?
So then the muses leave, but Kira can stay. And she's like, my name isn't really Kira. I lied. And we do get, not only do we get the Australian accent, of course, that's Olivia Newton-John's accent, but we get like a range of accents through the course of the movie.
I
It's
know she
interesting.
doesn't stick to like one, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. I was like, oh, girl, it's okay. We love your accent. Keep it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
because she was supposedly playing all these different characters because she had been a muse in all these different over the years, but it just was silly. It was
That went
ridiculous.
over my head. I was like, oh, is that
So then we have they've opened the Xanadu, but Sunny is like feeling kind of sad because the muses have left, and Danny orders a cocktail for him, and the and then the waitress, oh look, that's a lot like Kira. Let's chat it up.
like I did like the last shot is really cool because they're just kind of talking to each other and they become silhouettes. Like
Yeah,
I appreciated that. Like surprisingly, like it's well shot at times and it's kind of like impressive how adventurous they were
yeah,
for this movie. Like you really could do whatever you wanted. Like no holds bar in this. So it was
yeah.
some things were really cool that they did.
Yeah. So at the time of its release, that Variety called it a stupendously bad film whose only salvage is the music. Roger Ebert says it's a mushy and limp musical fantasy with a confused story redeemed only by Newton-John's high spirits and several strong scenes with Kelly. Ebert criticized the
Yeah.
choreography, saying that the dance numbers in this movie do not seem to have been conceived for film. He noted that large dance scenes were not photographed well by the cinematographer, who shot at eye level and failed to capture the larger patterns of dancers, with dancers in the background muddying the movement of the foreground. Yeah, you really didn't get like a sense of like real spectacle from
No,
the dance
no.
sequences.
It's true. Like they were like choreographed well because obviously Gene Kelly like helped choreograph it, but when you're framing that, it looks messy,
Yeah, I
you
mean, you just
know?
didn't get a sense of like awe and spectacle. Like for instance, like Mamma Mia, maybe that's not like the best movie of the world, but the dance sequences are well photographed. I really enjoy
Yeah.
Mamma Mia, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying that like there's a sense of spectacle to the whole thing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And also like Mamma Mia kind of owns its silliness, I think, very well. Like,
I think that's why everyone respects it too as a musical because it
yeah,
doesn't make sense. On paper,
right.
that thing does not make sense.
Yes.
Like
I mean,
so
I think this has higher artistic ambitions than something like a Mamma Mia, which is just to
mhm,
entertain and,
yeah.
do this, have some fun songs. It's just, whereas this, it's like trying to do like animation and say all these things about love and life and God and, all this stuff. And it just,
It's so
it doesn't
funny.
work. It's very
Like it's just
silly.
so funny. The
Yeah.
whole thing. Yeah.
So yeah, the it has 31% on currently on Rotten Tomatoes. So I'll add my maybe I'll make it end up being
Yeah.
lower.
We're like dragging
not,
it down
not
now.
even spandex and over-the-top musical numbers can save Xanadu from questionable acting, unimpressive effects, and a story unencumbered by logic.
It's true. It made no sense.
Yeah.
I went up to my dad halfway through I like watching it and I'm like, I'm like, am I not supposed to understand Xanadu? He's like, no, you're not supposed to get it at all. There's nothing that happens in that movie. I was like, okay. I was like, thanks. Just double checking if I'm missing something.
I mean, do you think that of the like bad movies you've seen, where would this land to you? Do you think this is like a fun bad movie, or what do you
Oh,
think?
it's definitely a fun bad movie. 100%. It's not like if I would recommend it, be like, you're just gonna have fun with it. Kind of like how people have told me about like Showgirls, the exact same situation, which I haven't seen yet, but I do want to watch it. But there were a lot of movies in the 80s that are now considered like fun bad movies, but they're still somewhat entertaining. You're not supposed to get anything else out of them. But I would recommend Xanadu just for fun. I definitely would.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can recommend it as a critic, but I do think
Yeah.
I would probably recommend seeing the Broadway musical, even though I thought the Broadway musical was a little
Yeah.
boring. I still think that's
It's
probably
better than the movie.
that's a better way to go. I think is to see the Broadway
Yeah,
musical. Go see
I
that
get that.
instead.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
So I asked on Twitter, what do people think of Xanadu? And it's incredibly silly. And I have Nostalgia Cast. He says it's incredibly silly and not made for me, and that's okay. But it's great seeing Gene Kelly and like Julie Andrews and Mary Poppins whenever they show Olivia Newton-John in a close-up. My defenses break down. Christian Paystrup, he says it's campy and fun. Gene Kelly and roller skates is great. It's not high art, but gets too much hate. And then Brian R says Gene Kelly roller skating is great.
No, it was. It really was. Like he's just everything.
I
He
mean,
really is.
he's not in it that much.
No, that's why I was sad.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if it's enough. Like really, it's just that one scene, and then when they open the club, that I don't know if it's enough to save it for me. But I'm looking on Letterboxd, and there runs the gamut. We've got a 5-star of my
Where?
friends. My
Oh,
friends. Yeah, we got a 5-star review. Let's see here. Come on.
that's funny.
Yeah, my friend Nathaniel, he says the best of all bad movies. If you take it at face value, it's an endless creative delight. Seen this so many times, but seen it in a movie theater in a crowded room of fans was extra amazing. My friend Molly Raspberry says wild that the whole conflict can just be resolved by Olivia Newton-John singing one of her mediocre B-sides to her father Zeus, which is true.
She's so talented.
Jen at every rom-coms gave it 5 stars. I'm going to go ahead and admit that objectively this movie does not deserve 5 stars. The bad acting of the lead male actor alone should knock it down a full star. And seriously, why is a Greek muse roller skating and helping people open nightclubs? But for its sheer audacity and commitment to its vision, for its magnificent soundtrack, for its glorious over-the-top production design, for its animated musical segment, and for, above all, the incandescence of Olivia Newton-John at the top of her game, this movie gets 5 stars for me.
You know what? That review sold me.
Yeah. Most of the bad reviews are short. Tear up why does this exist? Another one, Jacob Morton. I want to support any kind of musical, even ones that didn't get its fair share of love. And then he goes on to talk about it. He's like, with Xanadu, I did get some entertainment in a sense. A good majority of the songs, mainly ones composed by Electric Light Orchestra, are outstanding. And there's the animated sequence. A lot of people love that animated sequence.
It's fine.
What harms this film more than anything is its storytelling. Throughout the film, we're supposed to believe that Olivia Newton-John is the muse from Greek mythology, gives support and inspiration to fledgling dreamers throughout the centuries. And I honestly didn't buy that. She's attractive enough to pull that off, but an 80s pop singer inspiring people for centuries when most of her hit songs are already dated, give me a break.
Damn.
So there we go. I mean, I'm fine with I'm fine with her songs being the inspiration. It's just that there's no chemistry. Like if there was chemistry between her and Sunny, it would be so much better.
Oh, 100%. You'd be it's watchable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like you fall for the romance, which is majority of the film, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's the main problem going on here. And Brian Rowe, he says, I have friends who love this film. I like a few sequences, but as a whole, it's a bit much for me.
I mean, I get it.
I also have friends who love this film. But yeah, it's a little much.
It's okay.
So there we go. That is Xanadu. Let's see here. Let's find out what we're talking about next month.
Oh, I was just about to look, actually. I was on Letterboxd. I'm like, oh.
So it's going to be fun. So next month, we are going to have a Jacques Demy month. And I think it'd be fun since you haven't ever seen the Umbrellas of Cherbourg, right?
Yes. That's the one no, wait a minute. I have a room in town.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
What I'm saying is,
yeah,
I think like when we're doing the David Fincher month, I think it'll be fun for this month to do a Jacques Demy month, and let's do a room in town, which I haven't seen, and Umbrellas of Cherbourg, because that's the real it's the most influential of any of his films. So it would feel like a little bit weird to introduce you with this like kind of more obscure one that nobody's ever heard of. I feel like that would be strange. Let's
so
watch
down for
both
that.
of them, A Room in Town and Umbrellas of Cherbourg. And it'll be interesting too, because it, like I said, it was very influential on many films, but especially for La La Land. It's practically it's a very similar plot, very similar in cinematography and everything else. So that's what we're doing for April, and that's going to be really fun.
I'm so excited now. Double whammy. Let's do it.
Well, let us all know what you think of Xanadu. Are you in the 2-star or the 5-star team, or somewhere in between? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this cult classic. And what do you think of the Broadway musical? If you've seen it, what did you think? I just saw it at the University of Utah. They did it, so it wasn't like Broadway, but it was a good production. But Manda, where can people follow you?
Yeah, you guys can always follow me over at AMXNDA Reviews on Letterboxd and Twitter. And you can check out my website, candidxcinema.com, and my YouTube, Candid Cinema.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, check out the Hallmarkies podcast and On Stage blog if you want to hear more of my theater thoughts. That we have a whole playlist there of lots of episodes talking about theater. Check that out. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really, really helps the pod a lot. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate that. And check out the Patreon group. That's the biggest way you can support everything we're doing. And we have monthly watch-alongs and other patron events. And we have our Facebook group. Really try to make it worth your while for the Patreon. And then we have the merch store where we have tons of fun designs. Like, I'm a theater girl, so if you like, I love musicals. So if you're a fan of this, you should get an I Love Musicals shirt. But check that out. And that's it. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.